16 days ago, a man who once ran a $4.4 billion classified research empire at the same Air Force base rumored to store debris from the Roswell UFO crash walked out of his front door in broad daylight and disappeared. No phone, no glasses, no smartwatch, all left behind. Just a wallet, hiking boots, and a loaded revolver taken with him. The FBI is searching. 700 homes have been canvassed. Drones, helicopters, search dogs. Nothing. Not a single camera in the entire neighborhood caught him leaving. And the whole thing happened 8 days after the president ordered the Pentagon to start declassifying UFO secrets. This is the story of William Neal McCasland. And right now, nobody knows if he's alive or dead. On the morning of February 27th, 2026, everything about Neal McCasland's day looked completely ordinary. A handyman showed up at his house around 10 a.m. to take care of some routine work. McCasland, 68 years old, retired Air Force Major General, living quietly in Albuquerque, New Mexico, briefly spoke with the guy. Nothing unusual, nothing alarming, just a normal Thursday in the desert. His wife, Susan, left the house at 11:10 for a medical appointment. She'd be gone about an hour. When she walked out that door, Neal was still home, still fine. She came back at 12:04. The house was empty. Neal was gone. His phone was sitting right there. His prescription glasses, the ones he needs to see, left behind. His smartwatch, his wearable devices, all of it still inside the house. But 3 things were missing: his hiking boots, his wallet, and a .38 caliber revolver he kept in a leather holster. Now think about that combination for a second. He leaves behind everything that could be used to track him or contact him, but he takes a loaded weapon, money, and boots made for rough terrain. That's not someone stepping out to grab the mail. Susan tried calling family first, then friends, then neighbors. Nobody had seen him. Nobody had heard from him. By 3:07 that afternoon, she called the Bernalillo County Sheriff's Office and reported her husband missing. The next morning, authorities issued a silver alert, which in New Mexico is reserved for missing people over 50 who may be in danger. The alert specifically mentioned unspecified medical issues that made investigators fear for his safety. They didn't say what those medical issues were, they still haven't. And that's when the search kicked off. Deputies started knocking on doors, first dozens of homes, then hundreds. They pulled in New Mexico's search and rescue within 48 hours. Foot teams combed through the Northeast Heights neighborhood where the McCaslands lived. Drone operators swept overhead. Helicopters circled the Sandia Mountain foothills, the rugged, rocky terrain just east of Albuquerque, where Neal was known to hike and run regularly. 3 separate types of search dogs were brought in. Horseback riders covered ground the vehicles couldn't reach. And on March 7th, a week and a half after he vanished, searchers found something. A gray U.S. Air Force sweatshirt sitting in the open about 1¼ miles east of McCasland's home. No blood on it, no tears. Just a sweatshirt that may or may not belong to a missing general. Authorities still haven't confirmed if it's his. But here's what really unsettles investigators. Despite all of this, the dogs, the drones, the helicopters, the hundreds of interviews. Not one person saw Neal McCasland leave his neighborhood that morning. Not a single security camera in a neighborhood of 700 homes captured him walking in any direction. No Ring doorbell, no wildlife camera, nothing. A 68-year-old man walked out of his house at roughly 11 in the morning on a regular Thursday in a residential neighborhood in broad daylight, and vanished without producing a single frame of footage. That alone would make this case strange enough. But what turned a missing person report into front-page national news, what brought the FBI into the picture within days, wasn't just the disappearance itself. It was who Neal McCasland actually is, and what he spent his entire career being trusted to keep secret. William Neal McCasland wasn't just some retired officer living out his golden years in the desert. The man had a career that reads like a classified document with half the pages redacted. He graduated from the U.S. Air Force Academy in 1979 with a degree in astronautical engineering, then earned a doctorate from MIT in the same field. Studied there under a Hertz Foundation Fellowship, which, for context, accepts fewer than 15 students a year nationwide. Later picked up a degree from Harvard's Kennedy School of Government. The guy was built for rooms where the doors lock behind you. His career took him straight into the deep end of American military technology. He served as chief engineer on the Department of Defense's Global Positioning System. Yes, the GPS you use every day started as his project. Then he ran the Space-Based Laser Project Office, then moved to the Pentagon as Director of Special Programs under the Secretary of Defense for Acquisition, Technology, and Logistics. He also held space research and operations roles within the National Reconnaissance Office, the agency that builds and operates America's spy satellites. Most people don't even know that agency exists. But the posting that matters most for this story came between 2011 and 2013, when McCasland was appointed commander of the Air Force Research Laboratory at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio. In that role, he managed the Air Force's entire science and technology portfolio. $2.2 billion in direct funding, plus another $2.2 billion in customer-funded research. A workforce of roughly 10,800 people across the globe reported up through his chain. Now, Wright-Patterson isn't just another military base. During the Cold War, it became the primary hub for Air Force technical intelligence. It housed the National Air and Space Intelligence Center, which analyzes foreign aerospace threats to this day. But it also housed something else, Project Blue Book. That was the Air Force's official investigation into UFO sightings, running from 1952 to 1969. Over that stretch, they looked into nearly 13,000 reported sightings. 701 of them were never explained. And then there's the Roswell connection. In July 1947, the military announced it recovered wreckage of a flying disc from a ranch in New Mexico, then quickly walked it back and called it a weather balloon. For decades, believers have claimed that whatever was actually recovered, debris, technology, possibly even bodies, was quietly shipped to Wright-Patterson for study. The Air Force has denied this. But the rumors have never stopped. So when people learned that the man who commanded that exact laboratory had vanished without a trace in New Mexico, the internet lost its mind. But the conspiracy crowd didn't pull McCasland's name out of thin air, because 5 years before he even retired, his name showed up in one of the most unexpected places imaginable: a leaked email from the guitarist of Blink-182. In January 2016, WikiLeaks published a cache of emails from John Podesta, Hillary Clinton's campaign chairman. Among them was a message from Tom DeLonge, yes, the rock star, with a subject line that simply read General McCasland. In it, DeLonge told Podesta he'd been working with McCasland for 4 months, and that the general was helping assemble an advisory team for DeLonge's UFO disclosure project. DeLonge wrote that McCasland was very, very aware because he had been in charge of the laboratory where the Roswell wreckage was shipped. A leaked calendar entry even suggested a meeting between Podesta, DeLonge, and someone named Susan McCasland Wilkerson, Neil's wife, was scheduled. McCasland never confirmed any of it, never denied it either. And then, on February 19, 2026, exactly 8 days before McCasland disappeared, President Trump posted something on Truth Social that changed everything. Trump's post was blunt. He directed the Pentagon and other federal agencies to begin identifying and releasing government files related to alien and extraterrestrial life, unidentified aerial phenomena, and UFOs. He called it a response to tremendous public interest, partly fueled by Barack Obama casually saying on a podcast that he believed aliens were real before walking it back and clarifying he saw no actual evidence during his presidency. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth responded with an alien emoji and a salute emoji. Publicly, Pentagon officials said they welcomed the transparency push. Behind the scenes, the declassification process barely moved. Weeks later, not a single new file had been released. But here's what matters. On February 19th, the President of the United States publicly ordered the release of UFO secrets. On February 27th, a retired general who spent his career at the center of America's most classified aerospace programs, including the very base rumored to store Roswell debris, walked out of his house and was never seen again. 8 days apart. Investigative journalist Ross Coulthart didn't mince words. On his podcast Reality Check, he called McCasland's disappearance a grave national security crisis. He pointed out that McCasland was known to be mentally sharp and physically fit, not someone who wanders off confused. He raised the foreign intelligence angle directly. Russia, China. A man with McCasland's knowledge would be a prime target for any adversary looking to extract decades of classified insight into American space weapons, reconnaissance systems, and whatever else sat in the vaults at Wright-Patterson. Coulthart also noted that in recent years, McCasland had been seen as sympathetic to the idea of public disclosure around UAPs. Whether that made him a target for people who wanted disclosure or people who wanted to stop it, he left as an open question. But McCasland's wife, Susan, had her own answers, and she was tired of the speculation. In a Facebook post that went semi-viral, she addressed what she called misinformation head-on. First, she shut down the health rumors. The silver alert mentioned medical issues, and people online assumed Alzheimer's. She said flatly, "Neil does not have dementia. He was not confused or disoriented. He's at some risk, but not from cognitive decline." She never specified what the actual condition is. She also killed a rumor that a close family member had received a disturbing phone call around the time Neil vanished, called it a complete fabrication, and said she'd personally spoken to every relative, close and distant. On the UFO angle, she was direct. Yes, Neil had a brief association with Tom DeLonge after retiring. He worked as an unpaid consultant helping DeLonge add technical credibility to his fiction books and media projects through To the Stars. But after the WikiLeaks hack exposed those emails, contact between Neil and the UFO community dropped off significantly. She wrote plainly that her husband holds no special knowledge about extraterrestrial bodies or Roswell crash debris stored at Wright-Patterson. And then she added a line that somehow captured the entire absurdity and heartbreak of the situation at once. She said that, with absolutely no sign of him anywhere, maybe the best hypothesis is that aliens beamed him up to the mothership, but she noted, "No mothership sightings have been reported above the Sandia Mountains." That's a woman who's been living with this for over 2 weeks, making dark jokes because the alternative is falling apart. So where does that leave us? Every theory has holes. Every explanation raises 3 more questions. And meanwhile, the single biggest search operation Bernalillo County has seen in years was producing something almost more disturbing than any conspiracy. Absolutely nothing. Let me put the scale of this search into perspective. Because what's happening in Albuquerque right now isn't some small-town sheriff pinning flyers to a corkboard. The Bernalillo County Sheriff's Office launched their investigation the same day Susan reported Neil missing. Within 48 hours, New Mexico Search and Rescue was on the ground. By the end of the first week, the FBI's Albuquerque field office had formally joined the case. Kirtland Air Force Base, where McCasland once commanded the Phillips research site, confirmed they were coordinating directly with investigators. Sheriff John Allen put it simply, "Finding McCasland safely is the priority, and every available resource is being thrown at it, and they mean every resource." Ground teams have swept the Sandia Mountain foothills on foot, the same trails McCasland hiked and ran for years. Horseback searchers covered terrain too rough for vehicles. 3 separate types of search dogs have been deployed, each trained for different conditions. Drones equipped with thermal and visual sensors have flown grid patterns over the area. Helicopters have circled overhead, running their own sweeps. On the investigative side, deputies have now canvassed more than 700 homes surrounding McCasland's neighborhood. Every single one asked the same thing. Check your Ring cameras, your security systems, your wildlife cameras, anything recording between February 27th and 28th. They set up a dedicated portal through the BCSO's Axon system, where residents and hikers can upload footage directly. They specifically called out anyone who may have been wearing a GoPro or recording phone footage in the Sandia foothills during those 2 days. Hundreds of interviews have been conducted. Family, friends, neighbors. The handyman who was the last known person to interact with McCasland that morning. Every lead followed, every tip chased down, and after all of that, 16 straight days of searching, the result is the same sentence repeated in every official update. No confirmed sighting, no confirmed video, no indication of a direction of travel. Think about what that means. A man leaves a residential neighborhood on foot in the middle of the day. Not at 3 a.m., not during a storm, at 11 in the morning on a clear Thursday. 700 homes around him, and not one camera caught a frame. No neighbor glanced out a window at the right moment. No passing driver noticed a white-haired man in a green button-up walking down the street. Former Defense Intelligence Officer Luis Elizondo said publicly that he hopes this isn't a case where someone specifically targeted a former senior military officer. He urged people to let investigators do their work. But even he couldn't hide the concern behind those words, because there are really only two possibilities here, and neither one is comforting. Either something happened to Neil McCasland so quickly and so close to his home that he never made it far enough for anyone to see him, or he made it out of that neighborhood through some means that deliberately avoided every single camera and every single pair of eyes, which suggests planning that a man on a casual Thursday morning walk doesn't typically do. His wife said it best. There has been no indication whatsoever of where he might be. As of today, March 15, 2026, the Silver Alert remains active. The FBI investigation is ongoing. The case file stays open. And somewhere between a quiet house on Quail Run Court and the foothills of the Sandia Mountains, a man who spent 34 years guarding America's most sensitive secrets is just gone. Nobody knows where, nobody knows why, and right now, nobody knows if we'll ever find out.